Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to our third roundtable. I think it's the third. And I hope you all had a fantastic day. And thank you, people, for joining. Today, I have again several guests that are absolutely fantastic. We have, of course, the wonderful James from The Broken Sword.
Hello, everyone.
And we have the fantastic Helen, the Clueless Fangirl. It's good, chat. Let me know about that as well. For all the people new, we will, as every week, discuss the last aired episode shortly before the next one comes out and share our thoughts about it. Maybe discuss a bit our highlights, our lowlights, and maybe some critique or stuff we didn't like too much and stuff we liked. All of that. And in addition, we also... I just want to give out a little spoiler warning, of course. We at least pretend that you know the episodes that have aired so far. Lowlights. I'm not sure if that's even a word in English, but whatever. But it seems like stuff is working out. So I would start as every stream with basically very short thoughts of everyone. How did you like the episode number 4? Maybe we start with James.
Okay then. It's a weird one. When I first watched it, really not a fan of how it went, but I've enjoyed it more on a second and a third rewatch. I feel like it's grown on me slightly, and the worst bits I could ignore more the more I watched it. So, although it's definitely not the best episode, I don't think it's the worst one either. Just kind of sitting in the middle.
Okay. What is with Penguin?
Well, I think my overall feeling on the episode kind of matches my sentiment towards the show in general. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. It's just somewhere in the middle where it's got some pieces that work very well, and then it has some pieces that kind of leave me scratching my head thinking, wow, that just seemed lazy or a missed opportunity. So, yeah, call it a 6 to a 7.
Okay. Totally agree on that. Harry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I similarly to Penguin, I think I mirror the same thoughts, but I think adding on the fact that I like the way it's going, and I think that there are of course some law discrepancies that we can, talk over, and probably going to do that today. I just think the only thing I hope is that I hope it starts to quicken up now. I think 4 episodes in, I did feel like with episode 4, which I did like, the story, the building up, the backstory, the world building started to go behind now, and we start to get into the actual meat of the story, but I'm just hoping that continues. And all I'd say is that I'm interested in the idea of showing the fall at the start of the episode and them combating the downfall of Numenor right from the beginning. And that is something that is I'm still unsure whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. And I think that's on more the interesting side for me. But what I did really like, I think, as Penguin said, you got stuff that is working really well, and then you got some things interesting. But the thing I do think really worked really well was Adar. I think that opening and that presence and that reveal, I think, was one of the top notch because the little details like the river on his chest plate, and then I think those are some of the high stuff. But then we go to a Sauron sword and Wardreg going, ooh. So it's like there's lots of it's. I hope it just line soon and we just get into the meat of it. But I think we are getting there with episode 4.
Yeah, quite interesting. Helen, what are your thoughts?
Well, where to start? No, just kidding. Well, I would say overall, I would give it 4 out of 10. I really did not like this episode, but I mean, we'll get to it later. But I was so excited for Numenor, and I do think you didn't need to change that much in the Numenor plot because there was no need right-wise to it. And it was the one I was looking forward the most because we've never seen it adapted on screen, right? So I was really a bit meh because I was so excited for it and I wanted it to be good. But then there were parts, I love all the dwarf stuff. I mean, screenshot this, me saying this. And I also loved the baddie stuff, like the Adar stuff. I'm really into. Orcs not so much, but the whole backstory of Adar I really like. So yeah, 4 out of 6. But again, I'm so hopeful. I'll keep watching it. This is not me bashing the show or anything. It was more being a bit disappointed about Numenor.
Yeah, I can totally see that. My thoughts. I know. Also, like it was really. It's a weird episode, a bit in my opinion, just because it tries so many things to put into one episode. I feel like if they would have split the content to, let's say, half of episode 3, if that would even be possible, or just 2 episodes, then I felt like the pacing would be a little bit better of the episode. Without that, it felt a bit rushed. Like, you remember at the beginning, we had Galadriel climbing up that ice location, and it took a lot of time to just establish her, I don't know, climbing abilities, if that makes sense. Let me just see if I find this really quick. Probably not. It's in this regard quite interesting to see that here we see it, and later in episode 4 she is just teleported up the tower and goes through the window. Like, I would have expected that we maybe see a short montage of how she gets up there, but there was simply no time in this episode, and as a result I felt like it felt a bit rushed at times. And that, in my opinion, is not bad, though. Is a problem for me. What is not bad about the episode, though, is definitely that it has really great moments. Episode 4, in my opinion, that really saves it. Especially the all the dwarven stuff is pretty awesome. I enjoyed these interactions there quite a lot, especially, as I call him now, Sherlock Elrond, or it's kind of pretty cool what he did there. But I would say, shall we start? Which plot do you want to discuss first? Because I would suggest we go through each, as always, each plot line completely instead of jumping back and forth.
I mean, you made this epic spreadsheet, which I completely ignored, but
in it, I suggested that the Arondir part we could discuss first, and we could also maybe talk a bit about Adar and friends. But I don't know if you want to discuss Elrond or Galadriel first. Okay, it seems like
you tell us what to do.
Okay, then we start with Arondir as it is, as it was planned. Arondir. It has a pretty interesting part. I think the big question we could maybe jump into it is definitely like I think the first scene we see is him surrounded by orcs, as we hopefully, as you can see here on the Discord thing and on screen, and then later Adar just appears, and of course it's always a lot of speculation about this character. I would definitely love to spend a bit of time discussing this if you want. So, what are your thoughts on this? I would even start maybe with Helen, because she is usually a fan of the bad guys. So,
yay, give me baddies. Well, Arondir or Adar?
Whatever you want to talk about. Like, Adar is, I guess, probably the most interesting topic in this context.
Yeah. So I think I tweeted it out literally after I saw it, that I would love if, he is one of the first, because we do know, right, from the lore, that Melkor, so the OG baddie, Sauron's former boss and employer, that he corrupted the elves, because, the baddies, or no one besides Eru, is able to create something out of nothing. And so I really thought, that was my first thought, that he is one of the first turned and corrupted elves. He definitely didn't have a good time. I mean, look at his face. And yeah, and over time, because I loved what he said, and that was very Tolkienian, by the way, because I often complain, the dialogues are not very Tolkienian, and it feels like, I don't know, I'm watching a chick flick or something like that, especially the Numenor scenes. But that was very Tolkienian. What he said, they told you so many lies, and you believe them, and even the roots and the trees now believe them at this point. And yeah, I thought he was one of the Avari, one of the early elves living in Middle-earth, not ever went to the Undying Lands, and that were corrupted by him. I think because of his standing in the hierarchy and the term father, right, which his name means. Is it in Quenya?
Yes. No, it's
In
Sindarin,
It's in Sindarin, right? Yeah. Makes sense.
unusually for the show.
Yeah. So I do think, yeah, he's somehow the father because they stem from him. So that was my thinking, and I really like that concept.
Yeah, pretty definitely interesting how they portrayed him. It was really surprising, even though we expected and had some theories before. But I would say what he said and the suggestions he made definitely fueled a lot of discussion. I would maybe definitely ask James, what do you thought when you saw this Adar scene?
Well, first, I think he's one of the best parts of the episode. He's one of the bits that makes me consider this a better episode than a worse one. Because yeah, everything about the scene with him with the orcs and Arondir I absolutely loved. And I'm actually on board with the idea that he could be one of the Avari, one of the originals. I have obviously seen theories of other people, like potentially being someone like Maiglin or Ale. But these are all characters that are it'd be breaking the law a bit to really bring them in. And although I could potentially get on board with these things if they're written in a good way, it would also be a bit strange. They'd basically take the fact that these characters are never specifically said, you see a dead body, you see someone bury them, and going, maybe they survived. Like the one that I find quite interesting is if they tried to go for Maiglin, Eorl's son, because obviously the whole thing is that he fights Twor, basically falls off a wall, I think it is, in Gondolin and falls into fire, which would explain the burns and all that kind of stuff. Why he's potentially going after the Black Blade, which could be one of the ones Eorl forged. Anything like that. Although, again, like I say, not really sure it'd be the right way to do it because they would kind of be very much changing what's been written and taking assumptions of death and maybe going, but maybe they survived the last minute. But it makes me very curious to see how they're going to take it. And that's, I suppose, the one good thing with the show at the moment, with them almost changing so much, is we can't definitely predict what they're going to do. And it gives us something to talk about. It gives us like a chance like this to actually have a discussion about something. Because if it was an accurate adaptation word for word, then there would be nothing to discuss. It would just be, well, read the next chapter and you know the answer. So although I don't agree with most of the changes, at least gives us a good reason to talk about it.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. It just I really like the speculation part. I guess it's for a lot of people that way. Also about the stranger and about Halbrand, who could be Sauron, and so on. Like it's interesting that they sometimes even play a bit, it feels like, with what we know from the books, with us book readers and fans, and so we have something to talk about. I think at least that part they did so far very well, in my opinion. Penguin, what do you think?
I didn't really find this sub-narrative all that compelling on an emotional level. Like, I think it's interesting. I want to know a little bit more about Adar. But it's more from an intellectual standpoint of, what is this guy? Where did he come from? What is the interesting part that jumped out to me was the orc showing a degree of reverence for their fallen comrade, whereas all we've seen so far is historically across media is orcs being brutal to their buddies and or just meat's back on the menu devouring them. But we know from reading Lord of the Rings that you've got orcs that chased after the Fellowship from Moria just because they're ticked off that these guys ventured into their home and killed one of their leaders. So I enjoyed seeing that part. But about the character himself, unfortunately, I don't really find him that interesting, that compelling.
Okay.
Don't you?
I
Don't
kind
you
of thought.
think?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. But don't you think that it's funny that actually the baddie is the one, because I saw a lot of people saying that the baddie, because the moment he killed the orc, right, he felt something. He was sad, actually. This is what a father would feel, right, if he would have to kill, I don't know, his dying child. And I really loved that, and I literally felt I connected most to the baddie, and that's not me liking the baddies. I really felt something in that moment, and for all the other characters that have been introduced to us, I'm like, okay, you're there, you exist. I can't connect to you. He's the only one where I felt these real and raw and true emotions, and I really like, and I think this is what the show can do really well. I think they give a really good backstory to the baddies. I mean, look what we're talking, like, let's say Halbrand is Sauron. They're giving him a fleshed out backstory, and I like that, but they somehow can't do it for the goodies, for Galadriel, so this is weird, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, I felt that. I thought that was interesting, but I don't have a strong connection to the character. My biggest
Okay.
takeaway from his entire interaction with Arondir was, I feel like a lot of dialogue was cut from this scene. It felt slightly
Yeah.
disjointed, as if something, something else should be there. And I'm more
Yeah.
curious about what was taken out and left
Yeah.
unsaid than by what was said.
Probably the
And
Beleriand part and the river and where their home was and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you
And
can
yeah, I
imagine
get you.
a real person would say, "Wait, what? Tell me more." Instead, he goes,
No.
"Yeah." Instead, that's just
Yeah.
left undone, and again, it just felt the absence of something more was
Mhm.
what was left unsaid and unshown was more compelling to me than what was said.
Yeah.
But not bad. But again, not great.
Yeah, it's definitely the feeling that something got cut out. I got a lot in this episode, definitely. So I totally know what you mean there. Harry, what do you think?
I don't agree with everything that Penguin said. I do think I did like the thing I don't like about the show too much. Lots of mysteries, lots of who's this, what's happening here, this and that. But I think they gave just about enough with that conversation with Adar, because we're all talking about Beleriand and Golden. I think, as James and Helen's already showed, how many characters we're going up for speculation. And I think I do understand that. I think maybe some bits were cut, but I did like the entrance, and it felt like, yeah, I think Helen said it felt it's one of the actual areas that felt kind of, Tolkienian in a way, but the dialogue, the conversation, it felt like, I feel like everyone is just, so far, like, everyone's having the conversation, everyone is speaking, everyone is, like, or, talk about the Numenor storyline, you've got this, but here, it felt like there's a presence here, and that's what I like, the idea of that presence and it being a Dar. And I think the entrance was, I think, solid enough for me. But I can understand why, if we had delved a little bit more, but maybe we've got the last 4 episodes for us to find out more about him. So yeah, I'm on the more happy side for Adar.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. Found it also very interesting. Oh, do we get some cat content, Helen?
Yeah, sorry. She's literally
problem.
sitting next to the mic there. Stage horse, all my cats. I'm sorry.
No problem. Is there anything you people want to add to this?
Something that jumped out at me with, again, talking about this sub-narrative is at the end when they're running through the forest. It's something that's common to a lot of media, but it's the trope where they're in the wilderness, they're obvious, and then Bronwyn happens to run right into Theo and Arondir. And I'm thinking, what are the odds of this? I mean, why does this kind of thing always seem to happen? Forests are large, terrain is large. How do they always seem to run into each other, especially in a forest environment where you can't see that far? I just hate that sort of thing. Why do they need to do that? Why can't they just come back to the fortress and meet there?
It's too convenient. A lot in the show is very convenient. If you
Oh,
Very.
imagine, like Lord of the Rings, right? When they were looking for the hobbits, right? After they were captured by the orcs, they had to scour. They had to search for a really long time, and then they even didn't find them. So that was real, like Aragorn's company, and that was
Yeah.
real, and that's how it probably is in Middle Earth, and not everything
and
is just around the corner.
yeah, it's just, another case of that. Well, this is in the movies, is when Elrond decides, okay, yeah, let's reforge the sword. Middle of the way through Return of the King. Then 2 scenes later shows up in I forget the exact name, near the entrance to the Paths of the Dead. And I'm thinking, wow, not only did he manage to immediately travel across Middle Earth, a journey that it took everyone else 2 movies to make, he knew exactly where to find them. It's just those sort of things are just way too convenient for me. And there is a whole lot of convenience going on in this show so far.
Yeah, that is true. I completely agree. That was this particular section here. I also found like it was just so many weird decisions I felt that we could see here. Like as you just pointed out, like Bronwyn conveniently running into the 2 of them. What would have happened if she would have, I don't know, entered the forest like 500 meter further to the left? Like just would be probably difficult. Also, she only has her what is it called? Sickle, or is it called scythe or something?
Scythe, yeah. Scythe, I think is what it'd be called.
Yeah, that's the only weapon she has. There's also like I get that probably the people in the watchtower or from Tir Ararat are probably not her biggest friends or fans, but I would still have expected at least somebody of them went with her. Like, why would they let the healer run off alone at night into the forest, just armed with a sickle to help against many orcs? Like, I get that it's...
Having watched a couple of things like The Walking Dead or whatever, or played a game, what was it, State of Decay? Yeah, I know that your healers, your nurses, your doctors are pretty important people. You don't want to lose them. So send a farmer instead. You've got plenty of those.
And
Yeah.
that part of catching the arrow was cool, but I think I was talking about this, to the melon heads. And one of them does archery, and apparently it's impossible in that forested area for an arrow to go up and down in the time for Rondi to catch it. Like, that angle in a forest is nearly impossible. So it is quite interesting.
Oh, the catching the arrow, I just kind of think, if this is just kind of standard elf run of the mill elf stuff, how do elves ever get killed in combat if their reflexes are so fast that they can snag an arrow mid-flight? An elf should hardly ever die in battle unless, orcs decide to just, drown them in their bodies or something. I don't know. It's just the little things like that, rule of cool filmmaking, bother me.
Yeah, if I could just add to that as well. Like, I found not necessarily Bronwyn showing up as too bad, because I would kind of take that as the assumption of you're straight line from location A to B, and you just hope to meet on the way. I can kind of get on board with that. It's the lack of reaction to the orcs that she has. She kind of just half grabs Theo and turns around as though they're not being shot at, and they almost act like they've been hit, but then they're absolutely fine. And you're kind of thinking, in that situation, at least let one of them take an arrow or something. Like, there needs to be, because especially with the music, like even before she turned up, they made it so dramatic and epic, as though someone, basically like Boromir, was dying again. But
Theo
they were still running, no one was
had been hit.
touched. He had a wound, and he was
yeah.
limping, but he was limping the entire time, and it didn't even slow him down. Like, the orcs couldn't catch him all that way anyway, so that was nothing to worry about. Like, I wanted someone to actually take an arrow to make this feel like there was a payoff to it.
There's a lack of
frustrating.
So far, there's been a lack of stakes. Like in episode 1,
completely.
When they fight the troll, you would from the action, you would think that half of those elves would just be wiped out, especially the one who gets body slammed against the wall. He should be a lot flatter, just a pancake by now. But nope, they all get up and then they say, "Nope, we've had enough, Galadriel." I'm thinking, it would have been a little bit more impactful if half of them had died And they'd say, for what? For your obsession? There's just so many little small changes they could have made that would have raised the stakes and made us feel stuff. And they haven't taken those steps.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's definitely a thing. I feel like it could be because, from my perspective, the show is still very, very setup heavy. It feels like the actual story hasn't even started yet. And if I would to tell you what is the actual story of the show even about, it's kind of hard to tell. And if you think about it, not much happened. I would argue like Sauron coming and becoming a threat and discovering him and opposing him. That seems to be the main story. And we got so little progress in that part. And everything else is just, how to say, it's just simply set up. It's really fascinating in that regard that they're just so busy with that. Also found the Sauron picture. It's in that regard quite strange that they put so much effort into all these details, but never really develop the story further. I feel like that is maybe an exception to that, and I would argue that is why, I guess for most people it works best, is definitely the Elrond part with the dwarves. Because here there's a very short setup time for him. He's the Herald of Gil-galad, and he writes his speeches, and he's sent on a mission to Eregion. And from there, due to the dialogue with Celebrimbor, he decides to maybe ask the dwarves, and then the plot is driven by the characters themselves, or by the characters, how they interact, how they talk to each other, and so on, by their actions. And in, for example, the Galadriel plot, and at times also, for example, in the Arondir part, it feels like it's the other way around. There, the plot is constantly driven by an invisible hand from the writers, like, do this, go there, no, you have to teleport there, it's just really, really strange in that regard.
I've complained in our Discord that everything Galadriel has done hasn't felt earned. It's just happened because they want it to happen. I honestly feel, I think the actress has done a great job, but she is the least compelling part of the show. And that's a big problem when she's supposed to be the lead character. Her actions and choices should be driving everything around her. Instead, she just gets everything handed to her. Oh, she just has a sudden realization, oh, this is a map. And I'm left wondering, okay, how would a map be useful to a bunch of orcs who live their lives underground? Why didn't she realize this then? Why, her entire thing on the second episode is just her surviving. She suffers no consequences for anything she does. Third episode, she mouths off to people in their own king and court, and I'm thinking, well, yeah. Someone said, "Oh, it's okay. She's a general. She's a commander. She's military. She doesn't need to know how to be diplomatic." Really? A general has to know a little bit of how to kiss the ass of their superiors. You don't get to be a general just because you're good at fighting. You get to be a general because you're good at commanding, leading, inspiring, and organizing. And yeah.
Yeah, but I don't mind that too much because I do think it reflects our own world history. Because if you look at the First World War, especially, or wars before that, a lot of people were commanders and generals who didn't deserve this, but they were because they had a big name or they were the king's third son or whatever. I think that is a bit reflected in this, that she's probably like mentally not the best leader at that point in time, but she's of such an importance and is so powerful herself because she's from the Undying Land. She's from that royal line of Finwë that makes her stand out, and this is why she was given this. I think.
Okay, well, one of the things and Harry can back me up on this, is that said a year and a half ago, either on Reddit or on one of our Council of Fans shows, that we need to come around to the idea that this is going to be largely high fantasy with a Tolkien veneer thrown on top of it. At this point, it's window dressing. So when people are talking about, oh, Galadriel and this and her backstory and Unfinished Tales or the Silmarillion, I ask, does that matter here? Because we don't know exactly what they have the rights to. They can provide lip service to it, but so far, much of this doesn't really matter. I mean, her driving quest is, well, I need to hunt Sauron because my brother was hunting Sauron. Well, I mean, we know that Finrod didn't die hunting Sauron. He died on the quest with Beren and Luthien trying to get the Silmaril. So we're already stretching some of these things to an extent. So
But then they
does that
throw, but then, but I would disagree because then they throw in a lot. They do throw in a lot of her backstory. They say, "I'm from Finwër's house or whatever. I'm of the Golden House of Finwër." Blah blah blah. Then they shouldn't say that at all. Then they should make her a complete different character. And it's hard because everybody knows the Galadriel from the movies. Even new people have heard of her and have seen an image of Kate Blanchett. So I would disagree. Then don't mention anything at all if you want a clean slate and portray as her as somebody completely different. Then don't name anything she did because they do throw in a lot of the lore
and
or
the
hints.
lore, the lore I think is great. The little apocrypha from Celebrimbor recounting how Morgoth looked at the Silmarils and was so moved by their beauty. I thought that was great. There's little nods towards the past material, but on the whole, it just feels like window dressing. If you were to, I mean, so far, if we were just to change the name of everyone to brand new invented names, rename the locations, I mean, how would we know that this is actually Middle Earth? No, there's no real thematic or tonal giveaways to me. I mean, I'm not, like I said, it's just feels like window dressing. So we shouldn't judge it, shouldn't judge the show based on its adherence to history of Middle Earth or Unfinished Tales. Judge it by its own merits.
I would definitely say I kind of see that, but I feel like they put in too much effort in some places. For example, you are right. Like just dropping the names does not make it, but like it would have to change still quite a lot, in my opinion, to really make it like to make the names just how to say, like to make the characters appear that they are not from, for example, Lord of the Rings. Like they put in quite a bit of effort in a lot of scenes. I probably won't find it this fast, but if you, for example, look at all the writing stuff and so on, it's kind of interesting. That at least especially I feel like the language stuff, and that's usually a part that interests me quite a bit. I felt like was greatly on point most of the time, at least, and from that perspective, if you definitely notice the love for some of these details is definitely there, but the problem is sometimes, as you said, some of the changes make it so incredibly difficult to see, okay, who's this character? Like Galadriel is, in my opinion, really extreme example in this show. Really outstanding almost, that she's so different from what people might expect of a Galadriel character, and she feels so alien to how I would imagine a young Galadriel. And so I can kind of see your point, but now I just found, like, for example, all the stuff here, you can transcribe it into, like, it's written in English actually, which is kind of interesting. And somebody just made the effort to transcribe some English descriptions of these towers into English. Like, you definitely see somebody or some people in this crew creating this put in the effort. Of course, that is not, as you said, it could just be like, decoy, if that makes sense, or decoration in the background that is supposed to make the show feel more Tolkienian or more playing in Tolkien's universe. So, but I still think,
well, don't
especially,
get me wrong, I'm not disliking Galadriel or any of the characters for going away from what we know. I'm disliking many of these characters because they don't really work on their don't really work on the show.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you. Like 100%. Like I feel a lot of characters, but of course not all of them, kind of just are there, are set up there, and that they don't really bring the story further, and they don't develop these, let's call them Tolkien-esque themes too much, with some exceptions. Like for example, the tree scene with Arondir I kind of found cool, though some people might disagree on that. Or especially the whole exploration, especially in episode 4 with Elrond and Durin, and with Celebrimbor and all the talk about his father Earendil. I really like that as well. But then on other parts, it kind of falls quite a bit flat, especially for Galadriel. Unfortunately, I have to say.
I would say, though, of all the owls, I would admit that I actually feel Arondir, being the actual original character, is the most elfy elf that we've actually had in the show, which feels like almost a complete misstep. That surely if they were going to have introduced one original one, they would have tried to step them away from being the more Tolkien character and made the Tolkien characters more Tolkien. But somehow they've gone the complete opposite way, and they've made this completely new addition the most accurate to what I would ever picture an elf being. So it just feels that Amazon just completely messed up on maybe who they were marketing to, or something in the pre-production of any of this. It's just, I just don't think they fully understood what they wanted to come out of the end.
I would say to that though, I do think alongside Arondir, Elrond has been great for me as well, and I do really feel like, even especially in the Khazad-dûm scenes, I do really feel like you get that Tolkien-esque nature from him, and I think a lot of people, even here nodding, I think even in the chat, and I've seen online, various places, he seems to be a strong point. I think a nice way how I'd say it is that in episode 1, you have Elrond lying, and he gets told, you cannot come to the council, elf lords only. He looks frustrated, he looks disappointed, but you can see that, and I like that you see that, but he doesn't go crazy. He doesn't. But if Galadriel was in that situation, what would have happened? I think that is the thing I like. It's got that. It would have been like, if you send me to on a council with the king, it'd be like, and
Do you know who I am? Let me speak. I've seen we've jokingly called her Carendriel on the on our Discord.
And but I think I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to go for the, she is hot-headed. She has to learn, and if Halbrand is indeed Sauron, what a lesson that is going to be. And I think if it's a good idea, but the execution is where it's lacking out at the minute. But I think near the end with when the Palantir once, I think someone mentioned it, I forgot who, but Galadriel saw Tar Palantir lying there dead. That was the first time, not lying there dead, lying there ill. That was the first time she's seen an old king. She's learning as well, that's a king dying there. And I think once from that moment, it looks like she's starting to refrain a little bit. But then, of course, we have seen stills from the next episode where she's fighting Númenórean guards. So I think we'll have to see. But I do think for that part, near the end of the episode, we will start to see a little bit of more of her character. But I do think around the elves, I think Elrond has been up there with Arondir, which I agree with James as well.
Yeah, I would also agree on that. Like, it's a pretty good point that you say that some of the new characters feel more Tolkienian than the actual Tolkien characters. It's kind of an interesting observation. Definitely agree. Is there anything of the Arondir section that you still want to discover? We could, of course, speculate a bit more about who Adar is. There's also the Maglor theory, but it so far I see shaking head, so no desire to go into that hole. Okay. So,
but do you, a question to the panel here? Do you think is he working for Sauron, or is he in season 1 and season 2? Will he be the counterpart? Because I mean, that could also be interesting, that if Sauron, whenever, is being revealed, is he working for him and with him, or is he having his own little kingdom over there, and then they are clashing as well. Is there a conflict brewing in between the baddies for the, you know, who's the baddest baddie, who can have the crown of Mordor? Do you? I would find that actually interesting. So it's not always good versus bad, but sometimes, you know, you need to have a fight for who can take up that role.
Back in the fun days of the internet when we knew nothing and everyone was sharing their own theories on how they would do the Second Age, I remember reading a theory, not a theory, just someone's own plot, and one of the elements included a bit of a power struggle between Sauron and a couple of other invented survivors of Melkor, you know,
I would like that.
battling for who's going to be the heir. And you got the guy who's, oh, I'm loyal to Melkor. Then another guy would say, well, actually, Melkor screwed up. He had all this power and potential and wasted it. Anyway, it was an interesting dynamic. And the idea was Sauron actually kind of uses these guys in a way. You know, the ring enhances his strength. Well, he also drained their power and put it into the ring in addition to his, which is why he's such an absolute unit with the ring. Thought it was interesting. Of course, a lot of people hated on it for, well, these are invented characters. Well, of course you're going to need invented characters. It's drama. But anyway, I you know, personally, I'd love if they were at cross purposes and they both are working against each other, if they're even aware of each other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to kind of play more of a negative person here and go, yeah, I'd actually love that idea, but judging it by how Amazon has gone about things so far, I could even see them just doing it as Adar's there to kind of fill that bad guy role at this point. Sauron comes back and just kills him like that. And just kind of goes, no, I'm the powerful one, that's it, I'm there. And they waste the character. Because I can just see that
So
happening.
Halbrand kills Adar.
You're
And
using the current writing
Joke,
so
joke.
far to predict the future. Yeah, I can't fault
yeah,
you for that.
but they've
haven't
said,
shown that. Yeah, they haven't
they've
shown
said
the
they planned out
capacity.
5 seasons. So if they've planned it out from point 1 to the very end, there's no, as much as I would hope they would maybe, you know, take in feedback from season 1, go back to it and go, okay, let's maybe alter a few things. Let's maybe rethink about everything that we maybe were certain of before because some things aren't landing. I'm also of the mindset that Amazon are too big to even care what any of us say. And that regardless, they will just ignore us and make what they want to do because they think it ticks their boxes. So I, at this point, very much feel like the bad writing could well be a staple throughout the entire show. I just hope that they actually have some wisdom about them to come back and go, actually, some things have not gone well. Maybe we address those issues.
Can I address something you said about the bad
Yeah.
writing? In my personal opinion, the show again is not great, but it's not terrible. It's
Yes.
mediocre with some good parts and some parts dragging it down. But it's not so bad that they'll feel forced to really do some introspecting and soul searching at the moment. You know, look at the hate campaign, you know, giving it a bunch of 1-star reviews. Well, it's easy for them to dismiss any valid criticism as being associated with that campaign. So it's easy for them to justify staying the course and writing off any criticism of the show so far as just being in bad faith.
Yeah, no, I do completely agree with that. But I guess I don't mean so much in the grand scheme of like the whole story will change. Like they're going to get rid of their big points that they're trying to hit. Or maybe they might look at it and go, let's speed up Galadriel's character development. Like maybe they're like, through seasons 1 to 4, she was going to get to this type of character by the end of season 4. Maybe they look at that and go, actually, let's just bring that forward to maybe the end of season 2 and get her closer to that character that people are complaining she's not. Maybe little things like that more than a grand rewrite.
I agree. I mean, like I said, there's so many little things about here. If they just tweaked, things would feel more impactful. Some of those elves getting smashed by that troll, if they had actually died, it would have made that mutiny that much more impactful because you have their. Are you laughing at something, Helen?
Oh, the poll. Chris is doing a poll. He loves that. He's been ignore me.
Got it. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying rewrite and shake everything up. I just mean minor course corrections here and there. The Harfoots,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed, despite myself. I wasn't expecting to like them. But Durin, Disa, Moria, wasn't expecting to really like that part as much. But the part of it that's supposed to be very tense and dramatic, the Southlands, I don't really care about it. I don't feel for the villagers trapped in that tower at all. If anything, I think they're dirty assholes, and if they all get wiped out, whatever. Broadwood,
I
Broadwood, and
would say that's a
Arondir,
big
I don't
theme.
feel for their forbidden romance. There's just no chemistry there.
I would say not caring about them at all is a bit extreme.
Okay,
But
their situation on the show doesn't really emotionally resonate with me.
I did
Uh,
think after the first 2 episodes, the Tiharad bit was one of the weaker storylines. But I do think it's interesting. Some things are coming really slowly, but then on that side, everything's being fast tracked. So we kind of pop, and then in episode 3, we didn't have them at all. And I think we need episode 5 to really see what's happening with the Tiharad with their village. Maybe that is the time we're going to, get all the Helm's Deep moments, and we're going to really care about them. But yeah, I do agree that in the first 4 episodes we haven't had the chance to, feel for their suffering. But I do think that is something that could, that we might get in the next episode. So I'll just hold on to that for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of I've tried to say it whenever I've talked about the show, and I've tried to keep thinking it like deep down as well, is that I can't judge the show fully until the whole season's out. I find it so hard to judge anything off the first 2 or 3 episodes, because there's so many TV series out there that if you only took those first couple of episodes, you would probably not carry on with it. But you stick it out to the end, and then by the end of it, it could become one of your favorite shows of all time. But because they're kind of setting up so much, and we've had no payoffs yet, it does feel a bit empty. But they just kind of need to really get some good payoffs and some good conclusions to really make this stick.
It would have been so easy, to make some characters we fell for. Remember when they went to Rohan first, right? You saw that family with the mother and the 2 children, and she saves the children, and they go off, and then they end up in Helm's Deep. And those little moments, like really heartfelt moments, we didn't get that for anyone in the Southland. Yeah, we had her and her kid. I find the kid super annoying. His friend is super annoying. Then you have the bad boy, that bad pub owner, whatever. It's like her. Okay, I don't like. There's
But
nobody.
what happens if you're not meant to really like them? Because they're also going through the angle that their ancestors were. Maybe they're trying to get the line of, okay, we want you to understand that these are maybe not the best people, but they're also in a perilous situation. We need to wait to get that part where we have to understand, actually feel for them, because they are in a perilous situation. So yeah, I do get the main gist of it, but I think that is interwoven into that is the fact that they are maybe not the best people in the world as well.
I think Galadriel and Miriel, when they arrive there, they will have this exact same problem. I think they'll be like, okay, what are we actually doing here? Are these Melkor worshippers, and we are saving them from what? Actually, I think maybe if they're setting it up like that, yeah.
And I just think with all of that, I think I'm expecting this payoff, and I do hope that, as James rightly said, it seems like Amazon, I think they are going for that payoff nature, and that's why it has felt a little bit, not enough payoff as of yet. And I think if we do, it seems like everything's going to be happening in this episode 7. Everyone's talking about episode 7. That's why I'm not panicking. I'm still level-headed as of yet. We've got 4 episodes to go, and I think after episode 7, if it still doesn't hit, I think it is a problem if after episode 7 we're still feeling the way we are doing now. That would be a major problem and a worry for the show. But if we might feel differently after all these things, the Meteor Man stuff that's dragging on, if that gets paid off, if the Halbrand identity thing gets paid off, if the Eddar and how his story ends gets paid off, how the love with Bronwyn and Ronde might pay off, if we get that by episode 7, then I'd be more relieved. So that's how I'm taking it at the minute.
Okay, I actually have a question for you guys then. Is obviously we're all saying about it's a bit slow paced at the moment. But do you think each individual story is slow paced individually? Like if you were just to
Yeah.
cut out everything else and watch them all on their own, or is it slow paced because they're trying to tell so many stories in one go?
Yes.
I think
Awesome.
I think in episode 3 we get a bit so fast paced. We got Galadriel, and we've even got the Ronda stuff. It was a lot was happening. Then we cut to the half. It's 40 minutes in, and it just slowed everything down. I didn't really like that, but I think it is individual. I think the fact that some of the storylines are just not as impactful than the others, added on with the fact, as you said, James, that they're juggling so many, and I do feel like it's just a mixture of both. But I think some storylines are stronger than others, and really are how I think they're really holding the show strong. But I do think it is a mix of both, and the problem of having it's like that could get numbed out. I think the interesting thing with the Harfoots is I think we can all meet your Mandalori. I think that relationship is what we're interested and invested in. And I think if they fasten that up a bit and then maybe slow down Teherad a little bit, I think find that balance that needs to be struck. And I am hoping it will still, maybe with the next episode.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good question. I would say definitely it is part that they try to tell so many stories, but I also feel like that each story is handled also a bit differently pacing wise. Like I feel like the pacing in, I don't know, the Galadriel arc is really strange often. Like at the beginning it was very, very slow, and now in episode 4 I felt like it almost felt rushed. Like so many things were just happening. Like they needed to bring the story to this particular point, and they only had one episode left. So let's do all of these details.
Let's skip ahead and have all these things happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I've actually got a question then, because I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this, because I don't myself. So originally, when they announced the show, didn't they say there was going to be 10 episodes in the season? Am I right in that? Or was that never actually
I
said?
think that just comes back to a Tom Shippey. No, he said 20 episodes. And that Tom Shippey episode 3 years ago that we hung on every word, then it turns out just about most of what he said turns out to be incorrect. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering if maybe they'd cut stuff out and had to rush things along. Because I remember hearing about that 10 to 8 episode thing, but I didn't really know.
I was saying we do know stuff was cut from this episode. We leaked a scene between Pharazôn and Galadriel where they get into a fight, and a dinner scene, like into a verbal fight, and that's cut out of the episode. A few more stuff like that was cut, and I think with the deal was in the actual deal it says 8 episodes. That was before creators were even involved. It was going to be restricted to 8 episodes. And another thing, just from what I understand from Amazon insiders, they have a metric system whereby they everything is one data wise, and their data suggests, maybe I think Helen, you might even know this, you work in marketing, that 53 minutes is their cutoff point for all Amazon Prime shows. They think after 53 minutes people tune out. So everything important has to happen, and has to happen by then. We need to keep people to retain past 53rd, 55th minute, and I think that's a problem. Maybe they said they might, maybe having hour-and-a-half episodes are better, but this is where the executive thing comes in. Amazon like 8 episodes and they like that 53, 55 minute mark.
Well, I've seen some people say, "Oh, well, it's marketing, it's math, it's science." I said, "No, there's the human component of this. How long does a piece of marketing content need to be?" The answer is always how long it needs to be. While it can be as long or as short as it needs to be, so long as it gets the point across and engages your prospects. That can be short or it can be long. And I don't think that 53 minutes really, I think it's just feels fake. It feels arbitrary because there's been parts of shows where I've been thinking, again, the conversation with Adar and Arondir, that felt very brief, like a lot of it was cut out and that could have been more interesting. And then there's some parts that have gone on too long. So saying things need to be 53 minutes, that's fake. I mean, the Lord of the Rings movies, the theatrical versions were 3 hours long. Return of the King was, what, 3.5 hours long? Then you've got the extended versions, which most people swear by, which are far longer. And while I think at times the pacing can drag in the extended, but it hasn't dragged quite like we've seen here. So that kind of metric-based things doesn't take into account like the actual quality of the episode. Because if it's still long, but quality and enticing and people are engaged, yeah, it can go longer. It doesn't have to be 53 minutes or less.
I mean, look at the Snyder cut, right? I think that's a really good example. But judging it from the thing is, streaming works completely different because the expectation and the your inner, oh god, sorry, it's hard to talk. I literally already have baby brain, people. But
it's a real thing. I've got two. I've seen my wife go through that twice. So you're okay.
Your expectation, if you are a viewer of a streaming show, is completely different than going to cinema, right? You take the time, you literally sit there, you enjoy your popcorn, you enjoy your drink, you have a complete different expectation of what is thrown at you in the mostly 120 minutes, right? This is proven apparently that this works really well. If they would have started with a 3-hour whatever extended cut in cinema, the movie wouldn't be as loved and as well perceived.
Oh, I
as
agree.
it is
The theatrical version is the version that won all the awards.
Yes.
The extended versions, I mean,
If
I
you want
think
to know more,
there are 3 scenes that I think are fantastic additions, and everything else is nice to have, or fan service, or just okay, this is too much of a good thing.
Yeah,
Like,
and
shut it down.
I would say even now with these episodes, with these Rings of Power episodes, runtime, they're still longer than, I think it's probably one of the longest streaming show episodes still. You go, let's see, Andor released yesterday, 40-minute episodes. Some of the Mandalorian episodes are half an hour, and I think it is still having it out. I think the only one that you compare to is, Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, but that has what's it? What are they called? Adverts.
also
yeah,
60
adverts,
yeah, I think it's like 60-ish minutes, or
but it's
the Game of
advert
Thrones.
breaks in between on whatever you watch on Sky Atlantic, HBO. But here it's just an hour, 10 minutes full of just content. I think even then they are pushing it. So it's a difficult hurdle that they're gonna have to cross, whether they do go further or because maybe that is restricting the writing because they are given these tight schedules. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
Yeah, because Amazon has a goal behind this, right? And it's not selling cinema tickets, which is completely different, right? And you know what to do if you want to sell cinema tickets, people to go to the cinema. If they have, and we don't fully know their agenda. What is their agenda? Everybody signs up for Amazon Prime.
Yes,
is it
Prime
just
Video
that? Do they?
Yes,
that. But I do think that there's a bigger campaign with the seasons going on for this, how they how this product is valued, and the end when they present their results to Bezos, there's more behind that. I do think that. So hard to tell. Again, so many people loved Andor. I don't know if you've started it. I've started it, and I was like, this is too slow for me. I don't want to know all this, but this is, me. And I saw 85% of the people on Twitter were loving it, apparently, that it is so slow, and the setup and build-up is I would have been fine with the content wrapped in one episode, right? All that, but people loved it, so...
I don't think there's anything wrong with a slow burn or getting straight into the thick of the narrative. It's just a matter of execution. With Rings of Power, the execution has been all over the place.
I think, Chris, I do think we want to... I think we are going to be off track, aren't we? Back to the story.
No problem. It's always the priority is always that you guys have a good time and come into a discussion and talk to each other, so we don't have to be slaves of the document I wrote. So don't worry about that.
Document rules, one document rule them all, and that's the one we're going by.
I completely ignored it.
Likewise. Don't tell him. I'm joking.
I actually expected people to completely ignore it, and as
No.
it's completely fine.
No, I'm saying it. Go back to the document. What's the next storyline? What is the next storyline?
Well,
Numenor.
Numenor would be a big part. We already went into this before we maybe close the Arondir part. I did a vote like quite some time ago in chat and found it very interesting because I just asked who is Adar, and the 45% said okay, nothing of the theory, maybe something new, something completely else. 45%. One of the original orcs, or maybe one of the Avari that, I don't know, got into trouble with Morgoth or something, 29%. I was a bit surprised that the Maiglin and Maglor theories at 16 and 8%, 16 for Maglor, 8 for Maiglin, performed pretty poor in the vote. So kind of interesting to see. But I'm also with chat, I think it's also something else, or one of the OG orcs or whatever. So yeah, that just to conclude. There was also a comment like quite some time ago, which I also find interesting. I think it was by the Amazing Bad Boy wrote it. Yeah, it basically asked, wasn't there also a talking about Adar saying something like, I'm not a god, at least not yet. I also found that an interesting line to what Helen earlier said on that. I think you mentioned that he is more like, is he part of Sauron, or does he do his own thing opposing Sauron? And yeah, that probably goes a bit potentially in that direction and hints at that maybe he is not directly involved with Sauron in that regard, but I, of course, could be wrong. Very interesting to see, and I think we will learn more in the next episode. But yeah, this just as a final conclusion. I would now say, yeah, let's start with good old Numenor. I guess it started, Harry at the very start of the episode, I think, mentioned it, it was an interesting choice to see the destruction of Numenor here. What were your thoughts when you saw this scene?
Surprise and intrigue is the two things I would say, because of course surprised, and this shows that they're not treating it as, a shock, and they're bleeding up to it, and that is, in television there's two ways you can do it. You can either lead it up, or with, of course, Game of Thrones, Red Wedding. If you haven't watched it, don't want to spoil, but I was very interested in how they did it. Did the babies mean something? And I think I liked about it, though, the thing I did like about it, it did set the tone for the episode. It got right into it. This has happened, then the next stuff happened. We didn't have to go into backstory. I think, yeah, see the picture there, you've got the babies, then they get destroyed, and I think that was a common theme. I like, again, how the planet it got referred to, and then after, actually, the thing I did like about it is first time Galadriel's been scared over something, look actually worried. So I did like that aspect of it. But yeah, the idea of even showing the Great Wave and have it be the episode title shows they are going, the concept McPain are going for. They're fighting it head on, and whether that is a good decision or not, I think we can't tell off this episode. So I'm just indifferent at the minute, and it's probably one of the nicer reviews you're gonna hear, because I can see Helen ready to say some nice things about Numenor in a minute. I think you love Numenor, don't you?
Let somebody else speak first before I start my rant.
That everywhere
Oh,
to be nice, then
thanks.
again,
Yeah.
Helen sorted out the absolute, shitstorm that's gonna come in a minute. So you all have to be nice first.
Well, I might not be nice, because I was actually disappointed they showed the wave already in such detail. I guess might be a better way. Like, I would get a hint of it, but I think the fact we saw so much was almost a bit disappointing. I expected that to be such a big moment when it finally happened. So to happen at the beginning of episode 4, like, it just, I feel like it loses some of what it really means by already having seen it.
I agree. I don't mind
Yeah.
teasing it, foreshadowing it, mentioning a recurring dream or nightmare or visions of the island's destruction, but now that we've already seen this happen, well, it's, and after 25, 30 years of disaster movies, it's really hard to make that feel impactful. Who's old enough to remember seeing Independence Day in theaters and having their mind blown when you see all these cities getting destroyed by the aliens? That was amazing and mind blowing at the time. Now it's ho hum because you see that in every summer blockbuster now. So I think kind of less is more when it comes to this sort of thing. Tease it,
Yeah.
foreshadow
Yeah,
it.
like I could have accepted the shot when they're in like the archway and the wave hits them. And just that. Because then obviously the water, you get the idea, but you don't necessarily get the idea that the whole island's going down. And okay, yes, for all of us, we know exactly what's going to happen. But for those people who don't actually know the ending, then it's almost a bit like, well, yeah, where's the setup for that now? Like these prophecy things are always a bit there to me anyway. Like, I don't necessarily like the way they work. So yeah, the shot on screen now, that one, and then having Galadriel, the shot for Miriel and the shot for Galadriel the same, like I could accept that. But yeah, I think the rest of it was just a bit too much.
That's a very interesting point you make. Just for example, in this scene, you could have set up it in a way that you, as a viewer, if you don't know the books, know what's exactly going on with the water all of a sudden, and the character knows, though, basically. So the character knows more than the viewer in a way. That is very fun. Also, I think Jake is in the chat. It says hello from Sardinia. Shout out.
Hello, Jake. Hello. But one thing I did like about the wave, though, on a cinematography level, I like how it came from a on a ground perspective, a first person perspective. The normal average thing, so many shots seeing it all crumble, but we saw it through the eyes and we saw it from a ground level. And I do like that when seeing, maybe not that shot doesn't show it really, but like when we see it from middle, actually it kind of does, but you see it from her. It's a vision, and I did like that grounded aspect of it.
But I teeny tiny bit I disagree, because we know, from again the OG movies later on, this is something Galadriel and a lot of fantasy movies stress this, right? Like magic and prophecies and all that is not set in stone, right? So if you show it, you could also play with the theme and the topic of, okay, let's somehow heal this island, let's somehow heal, or at least try. This is what Palantir was doing, right? And we learn that. Let's heal the rift between the elves and the gods, and maybe then we can. This won't become true, right? So showing it is for Galadriel, for Miriel, for all of them actually a good thing to work together. And for the viewer as well, because we know prophecy doesn't always,
Mm-hmm.
happen.
And
Yeah, there's some freedom.
and unless I'm wrong, I do remember having an idea where in the law it said Tar Palantir. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So saying Tar Palantir, he had a vision. He said when the petals on the white tree fall, then so will the line of the Númenórean kings. They're doing the same thing here, but they made it a prophecy of sorts. They are adapting kind of what's already in there, but again, I'm interested. Nothing beyond that. I do hope it does pay off, but it's not the decision I would have made. Is what I'd say.
What I think is interesting.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say what's interesting is kind of teasing the role of fate or the Valar, and having the tree. It's almost like, oh, they're sending her back to Middle Earth. We disapprove of this action. And I was thinking, really, I would have thought, at least the way I always imagined this was Numenor's intervention in Middle Earth is what really sped along its downfall. So it's just interesting for them to make intervention appear to be the right choice for the island, based on when it's, yeah, I don't know, that just kind of struck me, and it's one of the few times where I'm trying to compare what the show is doing against what Tolkien actually wrote, rather than just judge it on its own merits.
Yeah, for sure. It's it's very interesting how they set up here. I'm also a bit torn with this. I feel like the actual downfall vision is a bit clean, if that makes sense. If you just consider what we know from the Silmarillion, how Numenor looks at this time, and it's a very happy scene, and she's in the scene with the little children, giving it gets his name, and so on. It's just she gets her name, and a blessing by the queen, and it's a very happy scene in of itself, and then suddenly out of nowhere this destruction just happens, and feels kind of a bit unfair in this regard. Like we have like the huge contrast of, okay, they're all gonna die, and what did they do wrong? Basically, it feels like a catastrophe that as I said, I don't have a better word for it. It's just, it seems unfair for them because you don't understand the reasoning. When we now go to what is in the books, you could argue, well, the Numenorians kind of asked for it. It's so I could imagine that they potentially want to portray this vision here as like, oh no, the Valar are monsters. They are sending these waves to destroy us, and because I don't know, out of ill will or whatever. But I feel like how this might be resolved then in the end might be a very strong contrast to this setup to the scene with the babies, and we just see, I don't know, dark temples and whatnot, and I don't know what they will show there in the show. Well, it would be a pretty interesting idea to maybe, even though I'm not sure if it's executed well enough for that, but just when people now seeing this, not familiar with the lore, seeing basically this distraction, this version of it, and then see how it finally comes to happen, and maybe they make the connection to what they once thought and speculated about. It could work, but I feel like it could be also maybe done a bit better. It depends definitely on the execution, on the what's coming up next, I feel. Though it could be, in my opinion, still be a smart move. Not sure what you think about that.
I mean, a lot of these things can work, because obviously this is teasing and being foreshadowed. Just so far, I don't like how it's done.
Yeah. Definitely.
Whereas,
definitely some...
it's basic, there's that quote from Gandalf, after everything is said and done, they've won. It's saying, the people... the cook in the kitchen, paraphrasing, the cook in the kitchen doesn't want everyone to know the meal he's prepared for them, or something like that. But right now, if we're sitting out here at the dining room table, I don't like the smell of what he's prepared so far.
Yeah, definitely. Have you something to add to the scene, or shall we maybe move to another interesting scene?
Let's move on.
Okay, so we also get to see this gentleman here, which definitely was also interesting to see. Pharazôn shows up with his son Kemen, and his introduction I kind of liked. Now we also see him closer, and they established these, what do you call them, guild crests or guild talismans? I'm not sure what the correct English term for it is, but so he seems to be connected to all those people. Then now we see him on the market shaking hands and so on and so forth, and basically explaining to his son and also to the audience his political style in a way. So I found that quite interesting, though it leads to a scene that, I don't know, I don't want to go in any political discussion here, but that felt very political, like almost like a political statement from our time. And what did you think about
that report of they don't like elves because they take their jobs, and we thought, oh god, we hope this is just one of those false set reports that we hear on occasion.
Like last year as well on the Tolkien.
Okay, yeah, but we've heard some things. We never kind of quite be able to confirm that, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside. And well, then it comes out, yes, we don't like elves because they take our jobs. We've been sharing that South Park episode GIF back and forth on Discord.
I know
Privately,
exactly what you
yeah. And here we are, and you got the subtle themes of jealousy of immortality, fading life, etc. Nope, it's purely economics, and I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. If this is the path you want to take, great, but it's just feels cheap and lazy.
Yeah.
It
I
doesn't
agree
make
on that.
sense if you don't know the backstory. Let's say we are complete clueless, pun intended, viewers who don't know the books and the backstory of Numenor, right? And because they hinted at it, they said, the elves haven't come to these shores in forever, yada yada. But if you don't understand it, you're like, okay, there's literally one elf. Yeah, she can climb towers and whatnot, but there's one elf. How is this like a big thing now? I think because I have a lot of friends who are casuals, and they said I didn't understand this. This was so out of context. Why would they even care to rally up against elves? Won't come because they haven't been here in 200 years, and we are so strong and we are so powerful. Like, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
It is very interesting that we haven't. The only time when in episode 3 when we got Halbrand asking why do they hate the elves now, then Galadriel says, "Okay, we're about to find out." They haven't gone to the root problem
No,
yet.
they didn't explain it. Yeah.
It's not a big problem because we did hear of a scene. I think it got cut in this episode, but it's Farazon in the chamber room actually telling Miriel, like, go against it, saying you shouldn't be doing this, and he actually name drops lots of the Numenorean kings who hated the elves. And that would have been so good to have that scene in there. We might get in another episode. I doubt it because Miriel's going to Middle Earth now, so I don't think we're ever going to see that scene. But we know that scene was included, and that would have at least given some more understanding as to why they are hating. And I think we're going into this without RuPaul. But what I do like about this scene, I think people have made thinks about it. Oh, Farazon's making a speech, and now drinks are arriving. Second later. But the person who's leading the speech, that noble person, whoever he's going, the what's called low man? What are you doing here, low man? That person with Halbrand, they were also talking to each other in episode 3 when we first see Farazon. So maybe if Farazon set it up so this elf hating mob happens, then he comes in and calms it down. Then of course the drinks are pre-planned, everything. Then I would let it go because we are seeing with Farazon's character. But if drinks were conveniently there, then not. So I'm still hoping slightly that we do at some point find out that they were in cahoots with each other. That would redeem the scene, minus all the taken jobs and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like with the whole drinks thing, like that wasn't much of an issue for me. Like, I would always consider Farazon to be a schemer, so I 100% could see it as a pre-planned thing.
Yeah.
But also the idea of there being drinks ready is the same idea of an archer never running out of arrows after 100 shots.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those little TV things that I kind of go, it happens. It didn't bother me that much. It seems to have bothered a lot of people. A lot of people seem really like bothered by the drinks for some reason, but it was just something that happened to me.
I think that's a good point Harry makes, that Farazon is definitely like a person that plans his schemes and is kind of prepared, and this for sure also could imagine was kind of prepared for him to maybe set a specific narrative. Maybe he talked to this other person, and we know he talked, I think in previous episodes we saw them talking, I think in episode 2 or something already, so maybe they know each other quite well. But remember when Galadriel is in front of the Senate?
If he's a schemer, he wasn't set up as a schemer. It just feels a little too convenient. So I mean, either they could have described him as a schemer, or right now it just feels a little too convenient. Maybe they'll reveal later that it was all a setup, but right now it just feels fake. It feels poorly conceived, another contrivance of a narrative that's full of contrivances.
To counter that, I do think the moment we did see that when we got the introduction to Kamen and Farazon, that little talk there, I did like that talk, and that did set up Farazon in a kind of way where he says, "I don't want you to be smart, my son. I want you to be wise." I think then a second later that scene happens. So down the line of that happened, just piggybacking the fact that Kemen is telling his father of a little wobble that's happening that he set up himself. Then you come back later and then you understand that a bit more. But again, if that does not happen, then I understand totally what you're saying with that. So I think that's a payoff thing that I want to, leave the exactly Chris has got to there, them potentially being in cahoots. So I would hold judgment on that for the time being, personally.
But
Yeah,
what
this,
it
by the way, the
said,
scene I meant was where we see them, both of them, standing together in episode 3.
and if you are a schemer, and the thing is, he needs to somehow, get to the throne. Maybe it is not by force and military, genius how he is portrayed in the books, right? Because he was a war hero, came back, people loved him. And maybe this whole political thing now, you need your little minions placed around. This is, remember what happened in the Bible, right? They had, people in the crowd shouting, kill whatever his name is, right? So that is what you do if you are a
Judas.
schemer. Oh yeah, don't kill Judas.
That could be correct. I haven't read it.
Yeah, I'm Jewish. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Well, don't kill my people. Thank you. No, but the thing is, what bugged me more about Farazon was the when he was in the jail scene with Galadriel. I was like, oh no, but you're a hero. You have a sword. Can you not use it? Yes, this is a very powerful, magical, very strong elf, apparently, with 5'2" or whatever. But but can you not be a little bit, like in a way hiding and being super afraid of her? I did not like that portrayal of him. He shouldn't have that there shouldn't have been a fight between the two. But the way he was portrayed, I really didn't like that. I don't want him to be just a political schemer. He's a warrior.
But what happens in the scenario that Halbrand is Sauron? Then you see him. That whatever happened in that scene, it's like he's orchestrated everything. He orchestrated it so that Galadriel, he told her, you need to go to X. And then he a minute later told Farazon, wait, be smart, because Galadriel, she's gonna be going to X and you know it. Then when you look at it from that sense, then you start to understand why Farazon didn't, just go jump and fight. But again, I do agree in the sense that I hope they don't diminish the character too much. Midiel is going to Middle. I think Robert made a tweet saying, oh, I hope, maybe Farazon's going to consolidate his power. Midiel's at Middle-earth. That is a way to do it, but it doesn't show the true cunning nature of his. But I do think this scene, I do forgive this scene and him not going up because it's smart. And if Halbrand does end up being Sauron, what a little thing to look back on in 4 seasons' time, 3 seasons' time. But yeah, I do understand both sides there, and I do hope they don't diminish the character too much. But I did like how it showed restraint and it shows Farazon, being smart in a way, and it did end up working. So who knows.
It's just, if this is like a D&D game, which is not, but you're not a mage and a warrior and a bard, and that would be too much for this character. So my fear is, and again, this is just a fear because, as you say, it can play out completely different, but my fear is he's just this political guy, and this is how he reaches the throne. But I want him, to sail to the Undying Lands and be like, yeah, let's conquer the Valar. I don't believe the lies the elves and the gods have been told us. I can totally do this. I want this version of Farazon, but yeah.
It's a warranted fear. It can be something that can work out really badly in the end. So there's no problem having that fear at the minute. I do hope that doesn't go down the line. And I don't think hopefully that will be the case. But again, we shall see.
Yeah, it's really tough having spent the past 3-4 years speculating on what they can do, and then seeing what they are doing and thinking, this isn't what I would have done. Yeah, you got the Farazon the politician. Yeah, I want Farazon the warlord who is, headstrong and sure of himself, and so can be led around by people smarter and sneakier than he is. Whereas we see a guy who's already very smart and sneaky, and so we wonder how can Sauron really corrupt and tempt this guy? He doesn't need the help,
What is
as
he?
far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. What is Sauron adding to to help him? He already seems on his path, right?
Yeah.
Unless that was how Sauron in that scene of Halbrand, then you never know.
Yeah. And when I watched that scene, again, honestly, it kind of felt like Farazan's presence in that scene was a little superfluous. So again, I wonder if there's some cut content,
Yeah.
stuff cut, more words between him and Halbrand that just didn't make the cut. Because as he's standing right there with his sword half drawn, you think, Halbrand's been kind of shown to be sneaky and resourceful. Why didn't he just grab that sword that is just a few short inches away from his hand and try to use that to escape? Just little things like that just don't seem thought or well conceived to me.
I didn't like how they just ended up in the prison. The two soldiers fell in. It's like it was a bit that the orchestration there wasn't great, I will admit as well.
Galadriel
When
is
she
made to
pushed
look,
the guards.
yeah, Galadriel is just kind of made to look like a badass by having everyone she's fighting with or fighting against just look incompetent.
Yeah, well, they've made all of Numenor, just every Numenorian, look like a very, very average person, like lower than your average guy from Rohan in the Third Age. It's like that's not what these people are, and they've just completely destroyed what these people are supposed to represent.
Yeah, they did that with Gondor too.
The brothers, they were really.
Something happened to the audio?
No.
I don't know.
Oh.
Seems to work, but I think we lost Harry.
Lost Harry. He's going on a date.
He's back.
He probably forgot to charge his computer again. Happens.
No, he's back. Awesome.
There's something I want to ask them while you're all back. I'm kind of curious that the Penguin kind of brought up in a side note. Because we had so long for this show to come out, do you all think this show was doomed to fail on no matter what they put out because it was never going to be what we'd hoped it would be? Do you think it was always going to suffer from that, or do you think that was not a risk?
For the people in this group here, it's absolutely a risk. But again, we're not the people who are going to make the show. Years ago, last fall, when we first learned about Lenny Henry and the Harfoots, well, there are two controversies. The first we're not going to discuss. The second being the presence of hobbits in the show in general. And people were complaining. I said, come on, is it any surprise at this? Because if we can take the audience, there's going to be the small subset of people that have read Histories of Middle-earth, and the core books, Unfinished Tales, Histories of Middle-earth, etc. Then you've got the people that have just read the core books. You've got the people that just watch the movies. Then there's probably a subset of people who haven't been exposed to any of it. But they're all expecting this Middle-earth. You hear Middle-earth, they think hobbits. So, of course, they're going to throw those in here. So while it's easy for us to compare this show against what the books, not to mention what we would have done, because we know how scant the details of the second stage are, yeah, that's absolutely going to be a risk. And so I've tried to manage my expectations, knowing they're not going to look at this and see the same thing I'm doing, that I see and would do. And of course, they're going to have to invent all their own details. So let's just evaluate what they're doing on its own merits. And parts of it I've liked, parts of it I haven't liked. That's fair.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Like, it's an interesting question. I feel though if we look at the show as it currently is, like, I personally, and maybe that is a good way to slowly, because we don't have that much time left. And we haven't spoken about Khazad-dûm yet. I feel like a lot of people really like that part, and often I understand what they're trying to do in this show very often, and I appreciate a lot of cool details. They sometimes show off like this green bow of return on the Numenorean ships and stuff like that, which I did not expect to see at all. And at the same time, though. They often fail at small stuff, in my opinion, where like they could have done it better. Like if for example, I complained also a lot about the Galadriel arc, not because the actress or anything, just because how weirdly it is built. Like how much time in the first 2 episodes was basically wasted to just get her to Numenor. If you would have gotten this time and flesh out her character a bit more, give her more time, maybe don't make her that annoying, would also help. And then like with let's imagine we would have a strong and well-developed Galadriel arc so far, and people would really enjoy that. I feel like this show could be like much better received. I feel like most complaints I heard are often about this particular arc and feeling very strange. It's for sure we can argue about the Arondi arc, or some don't like the Harfoots or whatever, but I still think they kind of work surprisingly well for me. Like I didn't expect to like the Harfoots either, and then it was also like a part of the show which I really enjoyed, and I could definitely
Until they
imagine
became cutthroat.
You love that.
See,
Yeah.
I actually felt that was in character. You have people that are trying to. We've looked at them and thought, oh, these people are carefree, they're idyllic, and then you realize that their lives are actually really hard, and so they're trying to put a good face on it. I had a friend of mine who died in a car crash because he was drunk and high, and while sometimes we'll talk about him, we will lovingly refer to him as our dumbass friend because he died of his own actions. So yeah, I don't think I watched that, and that was one of the real times that they resonated with me because, fact of the matter is life in a pre-industrial setting, especially when you're what's the word I'm looking for, nomads like this, is hard. So you find joy where you can, even find joy in remembering people, even if they died ironically in a terrible way.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I also could kind of understand that in the right circumstances, in the right situation, even in like a moment of grief, or if you, in memory of somebody who has passed, that you can make like a little fun joke there that doesn't feel too off. And I could imagine that it fit in this particular situation, and I also felt like, of course, that the Hobbit actresses always nail their performance is just really good, in my opinion. They nail it so well.
Yeah,
So,
the 2 girls. Yeah.
And I also think definitely that this whole we leave people behind stuff also gives like an interesting twist to this society, and I'm definitely curious how this is developed further. So I'm definitely also on the board of people really liking the Hobbit part. Like it's kind of interesting, and like as a whole, as the 4 plot lines go, as just discussed in the moment before, that it really feels like it's just I wouldn't say it's small things, but it's somewhat small things that's holding the show back. And I feel like, though, like my hope definitely is that, for example, now in episode 4, Galadriel made quite a bit of character development, I felt, even though it was very rushed, but it was finally there, that she now maybe becomes a little bit less annoying, if that makes sense. So kind of almost looking forward what they do with this in the next few episodes, and if it gets better and better, and maybe at the end of season 1 we look forward to season 2 and see, okay, what's going on with Galadriel there? What might happen there? That's definitely something that I find very interesting. Shall we now, of course we're getting close to the end of the stream, I suspect that you all liked the Khazad-dûm part, so we could, I don't know, maybe you have some words or some details about that part that you really want to put some emphasis on or so.
I thought this has been, along with the Harfoots, the best part of the show so far. You've got Elrond and Durin, and what I really like is how they are trying to juggle their friendship with each other against the needs of their leadership and their civilization. So there's a tension. Okay, I value this friendship, but the elves have their motives over here. You've got the dwarves with their own motives, and they're kind of caught in the middle of that, even while they're trying to make everything work for everyone. I think it's interesting. We haven't quite seen that in any Middle Earth adaptation yet.
Yeah, fully agree. I said at the earlier, like here it really feels like, okay, we're at a stage in this story arc where the characters just through interaction and dialogue develop the plot further, and conflicts are on the horizon, but they feel kind of naturally. It doesn't feel forced or artificial like some of the plot twists and other details of, for example, the Galadriel plot, which I often feel like it has great moments as well. For example, when she's in the tower with and finds Miriel and sees Tar Palantir there and realizes what's going on, and she even excuses to Miriel there. Like, I felt that was a really strong moment and scene there, but everything that led to this scene often feels so incredibly forced and artificial that it I couldn't really enjoy it often. And this is completely different for the Elrond and Durin, Disa and King Durin part, which I really enjoyed. Also helps that the actors just really nail it. Like when I saw the teasers and trailers before, I was not convinced of Robert Aramayo, but seeing him in action, like, he completely convinced me from episode 1 on, basically. Really enjoy his performance, seeing him acting with the others. They have a good chemistry. Also, Disa works really well for me. I think she has become a really, almost, I wouldn't say a fan favorite, but at the beginning there was also she was getting some flack, the actress and so on. But currently it feels like people really enjoy this part here. Any further? Oh yeah, sorry.
And the fun thing about that is, right, because we know what happens in Moria, so you know the ending already, but you're still so invested, and you grew to, you know, that beginning scene when we were introduced to the dwarves, when that guy at the door was shutting the door after, you know, Elrond said, "Hey, I'm here, can you let us in?" and like bragging about you to Celebrimbor, and then even, you know, him like, "No, thank you, go away." And you know, you grew to learn all the ones who were singing there, you know, they were all so cool, and they're setting, yeah, that they're giving us this world. We just knew of the lost world of the dwarves, right? And everything was morbid and dead. Not talking about the Hobbit here, but the OG movies. And this is so cool that they fill it with life now. So I think this is what also a lot of the people connect with, and the whole theme of the dwarves, you know, losing your home and going through so many challenges and dying, and all that. I think this is such a, you know, important theme in Tolkien.
We know the ending of this civilization, so
Yeah.
so there's no mystery in what's going to happen, but we're interested to see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and I feel like one of the weaknesses of a lot of the other subplots is over-reliance on mystery. And there's nothing wrong with one of my favorite movies is Apollo 13. I mean, everyone knows there's a disaster. We all know people in the 90s who were adults would have remembered that they all make it. And so there's no mystery, but the drama is seeing how it happens and how they overcome all these obstacles. It's not
Yeah, but it's almost making everything else more frustrating, though, is seeing how well they're doing on this one story to then not be able to hit the mark at all or anywhere near it on the others. It's almost like they had different writers for different arcs, and that the people just didn't talk to each other at all, or just cross over. And it was just, they took four different shows, and they put them together into one, and that's what they're showing us.
Yeah, I've thought that myself.
I thought that too, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's hard to believe that the people who wrote this, where's my button? This part here, wrote also the Numenor, or how Galadriel gets to Numenor. It's like completely nonsensical for me. It's just mind-blowing almost.
After watching those first 2 episodes, I made the comment that the parts of it that I liked the most were those which were character-driven, where the actions and conversations of characters take them to someplace else, which then takes them to someplace else. You know, Elrond, we're introduced to, through him, Gil-galad is characterized a little bit, just because we realize he's giving a speech Elrond made for him. Then he's introduced to Celebrimbor, and you get the sense that he was deliberately placed there because of his relationship with the dwarves, and so you're kind of wondering what's going on. But Elrond may not realize it. But again, it's organic. But Galadriel, well, it's just she's put in these situations and no real rhyme or reason, and then when stuff happens, but there's no like setup. It just doesn't feel earned.
Yeah.
Initially, the Harfoots, we were dropped into them, and it took me a while to grow to like them. Dropped into the Southlands, we're told these two characters have a forbidden love, and well, I'm not really rooting for them or feel any chemistry between them. It's just kind of there, and I don't care about any of the other Southlanders at all. The most interesting part is Adar and honestly the orcs, because we haven't seen orcs like this in media so far. So skip the Southlanders, show me these orcs and how they're interacting. That's what I want.
That was Daddy Adar. No, but Harry, do you know anything about that? That obviously they filmed in different locations for this, right? And they were different sets. And I think we know this from Game of Thrones. Obviously, you have then different editors, different cutters doing this. But do you know anything, Harry, that there were different writers?
The only thing I know is that the writers for different episodes. Of course, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, the episodes. Yeah.
Okay. It would be quite unprecedented if they did do it by storyline. That would be like crazy. I know some of the directing was done like that. So like Wayne Cheap did all of Numenor, even though he's not credited for episodes.
That's set related because they were that set, right? Yeah.
But writing wise, I'm not sure. I don't think so either, because these are some like high list writers. They're like some Breaking Bad, Stranger Things, etc. I'm not sure Amazon would just change up. But thing is though, it does feel like that. That's the difference. It does feel like that. And I understand that point there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely want to underline again that what Penguin just said, that what she does never feels earned because it's just kind of dictated into the story. That's a big difference to what we see with the Elrond storyline, for example. Like here we see her leaving, like she fails in her mission to get her army and get back to Middle Earth, and then it's only because the tree starts losing his leaves or whatever you call it in English, and then the change in mind for the Numenorian happens, and the story progresses on. It's not because of her acting, of her dialogue, of what she says to Miriel. Maybe kind of it is also related to that, of course, but the main reason why at the end the plot of Numenor continues is because the tree loses its leaves, and it's just one example of many. Like I totally agree what you say, that as a result very few things she does feel earned or feel like she did it. It's just written into the script.
Do you know what does feel earned though? That conversation between Durin the Fourth and Durin the Third. That was one of the Epichen's best bits of the episode for me.
Yeah.
That conversation.
Yeah. And the actor, oh my god, I don't know him, but who the Durin the Third actor. Oh, so good, so haunting. Like the voice and everything.
Again, it's like with someone like Arondir feeling the most elf. I feel King Durin by far feels the most like book dwarf. Like he nailed it, and it's just that one's perfect for me. I couldn't say anything bad about that part of it.
The whole not trusting the elves. I love that.
The dwarven instinct takes over here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Pretty awesome. So I would say we are getting very close to the end of the episode, because today we have to end kind of on point, which is unusual.
I'm not used to this being on one of Chris's streams. It's like stay forever till you die, or like.
Yeah. I try not to torture my my other guests that way, but I would say we have a few things at the still on the list. I would maybe ask into the round. Maybe also Harry has some additional information or so that he can drop, or I don't know. What do you expect from episode 5 then? Like just a few thoughts of you, because I said we have to get in it soon.
I expect Balrog. That's all I'll say.
Well, I expect to see the Harfoots, because we didn't see any of them this past episode, which I may chime in and say one of the issues I have with the show is that, episode 3 didn't have any Elrond, Durin, or Disa, and I didn't miss them, even though that's been one of my favorite parts of the show so far. I mentioned that I've grown to appreciate the Harfoots. We didn't see any of them in episode 4, and I realized I didn't miss them. I wasn't disappointed that I didn't see them, and I thought, is that just and that's not a good thing.
Yeah. James just frozen.
Oh, sorry. Internet here can be awful sometimes. I had a mic cut off moment. What was that last thing?
Oh, we were cut off. We just asked, what do you think of episode? What do you expect from episode 5?
All right. I honestly feel like with the way the show's gone from kind of slow to fast, I think this is going to be a very fast-paced episode. I think they're going to throw a lot at us, and hopefully it doesn't become too much. I think we're going to be like kind of being thrown here, there, everywhere to get everything where they want it for the end of the season or for the next couple of episodes to happen. So I feel like, I feel like the change of pace is going to be coming about pretty quick now.
And actually, I do have a little, leak that we can. I think that's in the last. It's fine. It's for the episode title for tomorrow, and it is called Partings. So that is the title for episode 5, and I've spoken to a few people who've already watched it, and I think it's going to be the most controversial episode tomorrow. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to have a lot.
Oh my god!
Okay,
Just
now
read.
now I'm curious. That's a
There's some
sweet
people
tease.
that I really respect.
Well,
so-
controversial to who? Because there's the
To someone,
purist controversy.
For us?
Durant.
For...
us, law-wise. So
Okay.
No!
Oh no. Okay, that's
James, grab a sword. Grab a sword now. This is the moment.
No. For this sort of controversy, we need pitchforks and torches.
I don't have a pitchfork. Only swords and axes.
Okay.
And a staff.
Well, they'll make do in a pinch. Okay.
that's true.
Yeah.
Helen, did you already
No, I want to
share
see.
your expectations?
I want to see more my man Celebrimbor because I'm still missing this whole timeline was really weird, and I wouldn't know, has Sauron been there? Has he been whispering in his ear, build me a tower worthy of Mordor? What happened there? I want to know if that was the reason for, we need to build this literally till next Friday. So that would be really cool if we get more Celebrimbor backstory. Eregion, I just want to see the streets because they always film in this bloody room. Is there not more to Eregion? Hello? So yeah, I really want to see that. And maybe Gil-galad. We didn't get a lot of him, and he's
You
of
mean
such
Gold Galad?
Gold Galad.
Gold Galad bling. But yeah, he's of utter importance, because he's still alive later on, which I would assume is the finale of the whole thingy, the Battle of the Last Alliance. And so I want to know more and see more of him. So yeah.
You mentioned Celebrimbor, and he had a scene in episode 4, and just that again felt very brief, like there was a large chunk of that scene that was cut off, and all of a sudden they're talking, and he says the dwarves are holding back on us. Go talk to them. And I'm thinking, what evidence do you have of this? There's context I need to see. We as the audience have seen the Durins looking at a box, but how do the elves know about anything? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't see, it would be so cool if you would have seen dwarf workers working on that tower, right? Just a bit of action somehow.
No dwarf workers, they take our jobs.
They take our jobs.
Yeah, but I like a little bit more lively the whole Eregion, because then again you would feel like, oh my god, when Sauron finally spoiler, when he sacks the whole thing, right? You want to feel, oh shame, another elven kingdom lost. So yeah.
Yeah, another one bites the dust. That's what you should have gone for.
It's tomorrow is something about the elves, and I'm not sure what, but something they've changed or something like that, or something that we might not be too. Well, we will
My
be talking
god,
about a lot.
Harry's
That's all
crushing
I
on
know.
my hopes and
They've
dreams.
already taken our long hair. What else could they take from us?
We'll have to see.
Like-
We'll have to, maybe I'm
They're
wrong.
going
but-
full skinhead in this one.
Yeah.
Harry, I live tweet you at 5 a.m. and be like very angry. Not tweet, I'll message you and be like very angry. Why? What?
I do get comments sometimes of people replying to the tweets and like thinking we're Amazon. So like, you guys have done this, you guys have destroyed that. Why you do this destroy? I'm like, we're not Amazon, but yeah, it'll be interesting tomorrow. I don't know the full thing, but I think it is going to be an interesting episode. That's what I'll say.
Well, I just have to, before everyone becomes outraged, let's just remember that my perspective has been this is a high fantasy. This is a generic high fantasy with Tolkien window dressing on it. Okay, let's just accept it for that, and we'll be happier moving forward.
No.
I mean,
Muted. That's unfortunate.
You know, need
I
touch
just
the
muted
light.
myself.
There's always hope. You know, what if Finrod
just a fool's hope.
Yeah, that, and there's always like, you need to touch the darkness first, and we're touching the darkness right now, and then we'll find the light. Which hopefully will be the next-
Make like a stone and look at the darkness or something like that. I don't know. I
you have
thought
to
that whole thing was
touch
lame.
the darkness first, then you'll find the light. That's how you have to, and that's why she jumped off the boat.
Mhm.
You're gonna touch darkness now.
I mean, James has swords behind him. I'm afraid that on his next live stream he'll be like, if you've seen Jake and James last after episode 4, I saw them live and I was like, oh.
Yeah, sometimes the initial reactions aren't always the best. Sometimes I need to give it another watch or two first.
Why? You've got a few axes on the wall. Why not? Why don't you both just do a video of just doing a rock breaking competition? You know, see who wins. That'd be an excellent video idea.
Now
Because
that I
they
like.
broke the axe, they broke the rocks with pickaxes, not battle axes.
Who cares?
I'll find a battle axe somewhere.
Yeah,
It's fine.
they have a battle axe. They're in Wales. They have everything there stored.
But Jake does all these wicked jiu-jitsu moves, so I'm afraid James might not survive this.
No, I mean I am definitely the Hobbit of this, so I need some tricks, I think, rather than pure strength.
Well, so I would say this basically, unfortunately, wraps us up for this roundtable here. It was a lot of fun. I would still give you, of course, all of you the opportunity to say what's coming up next on your channels or give shout outs or whatever. Maybe we start with Helen.
Well, not much happening on my channel. Again, I'm just guesting at other people's channels. But yeah, I'll give birth in 2.5 weeks to a baby elf. And so this might be the last time for a while before you'll see me. Then I probably go into zombie mode. But again, my channel has a lot of lore videos about Numenor and the book stuff. So if you're interested in learning what was the story Tolkien wrote, you're welcome. The Clueless Fangirl. They're like baddies, so a lot of baddie content there.
Okay, James.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the channel's The Broken Sword, and we cover basically everything we can on Tolkien, whether that's the book lore or the show. We're happy to go in discussions both ways. We're not against it. For stuff coming up, the next few videos I can think of, doing the origins of the elves, so their awakening and the original ones. We got videos on Morgoth coming up and his kind of the mentality of him, I guess, as a teaser, and even the likes of how Sauron makes war. So we kind of go for a few different things, and yeah, there's a lot coming up.
Pretty awesome. Harry and Penguin, I assume you have the same channel to promote?
Yep. Penguin, where can people find us lovely folk, and what do we do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not really sure anymore. Just joking. Yeah, Fellowship of Fans on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and we're working on an OnlyFans as well. So be on the lookout.
That's a joke. We are not.
Fellowship of Fans, OnlyFans. Yeah.
You know, coming 2023. But yeah, just find us there. Give us. We discuss the show just like we do with Chris. We had him on a few weeks ago. We of course get scoops around the show and just discuss Tolkien in general as well, just like the other lovely folk here. So thank you, Chris, for having us on.
Yeah, it was really lovely having you here. It was a lot of fun, and it really seemed like you people had a good discussion going on. I could even zoom out for a time and just do production in the background. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, for my side, I'm still working on a very relatively in-depth analysis of episode 3, which I still haven't done yet. But tomorrow there will be streams where we go through episode 5, of course, maybe later a watch party. I might consider after this stream that I go live on Twitch later and do another watch party of the first 2 episodes. So if you're interested in that, maybe check that out using the fantastic Twitch watch party feature. And that basically is it. So there will be more content on this channel. I also linked the channels of my fantastic guests today also in the description, so you can check them out, follow them or subscribe. Oh, my computer's just dying again. That's unfortunate. But yeah, it is. It was a lot of fun with you here. I'm a bit sorry that I couldn't go too much into what's going on in chat. That would have been lovely. But okay, my credits simply don't want to work. But doesn't matter. Shoutouts to all the member people. If you see this as a VOD, consider leaving a comment, press a like button, and if you're new to this channel, maybe also subscribe. Would be much appreciated. Next Thursday or Wednesday, it's still not organized. I will let you know over Twitter and other channels when the next roundtable will be there available and what guests I might have on then. So if you like this panel and panels in this format and style, check my channel out next week again. And this basically wraps us pretty much up. And I would say thank you people for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.